Hey there. So, in today's digital age, your company's most valuable digital asset is your domain name. It's where your company website is registered through, it's where your company emails are registered through, and you may have other services like VPN, file storage, remote access, and things like that, which oftentimes are tied to your company domain. So, you want to make sure you're never at risk of losing it. It would be devastating for most organizations to lose their company domain name. I'm going to show you some tools that we use that you can also use to monitor where it's registered, make sure you have current updated contact information, and even use a tool to monitor if the website is up and running as you expect. So first off, what's a registrar? Well, that's where you would register the domain name through. GoDaddy, Network Solutions, these are examples of registrars. So hopefully you know where your company domain is registered through, whether that was you or somebody else in the organization, and you have access to that account. If you do, great. What I'd recommend is at least once a year, you go into that registrar, make sure the contact information is updated and current, and the billing information, like your credit card, is updated and current as well. So that when that domain is set to register or renew rather, and it goes no problem. What can often happen is somebody registered a domain name for an organization years ago. Maybe they registered it for a 5 or 10 year period, so it hasn't been something you've been paying attention to. But now that person's no longer at the organization. You're not getting notifications that the domain is going to expire, and whatever payment method they use is no longer valid either. So all of a sudden, the domain comes up for renewal. No one's paying attention to it. No one's even aware that it's going to expire, and then it does expire, and suddenly you're scrambling to try to recover that, and hopefully you can get it back. That's not a situation you want to find yourself in. So if you do have access to the account, great. Log in, make sure the contact information is updated, it's current, make sure your billing information is updated, current, and add it to your calendar. Do that once a year, maybe twice a year, just so you know everything's all set and squared away with the registrar. If you don't know where it's registered, maybe it was years ago or somebody else in the organization that's moved on did it, it can be a little bit harder, but what you want to make sure is you figure out where that's registered and get access to that account so you can update the information, update the credit card contact. If you don't know where it's registered, this is a great tool that you can use. It's whois.com. And once you go here, you'll want to use this search box in the top right corner, not the main one here, but up here, to type in a domain. So in my case, for Hello Data, if I put the domain in, click Whois, and this will show you the registration information that's publicly available. So I can see, for example, when it was registered, when it's set to expire, when it was last updated. I can see the name servers, and then I can see the registrant contact information. Almost every registrar now offers free privacy, or it's included. So this information is not really going to be that useful because it's all private information that's not, for example, the information of who actually registered the domain name. For, in this case, my email, my phone number, my address, which is good for privacy. I don't really want all that information being publicized. But if you're trying to recover a domain name, it makes it a little bit harder because you don't know who is on file for registering this domain. But it can at least help you narrow down. For example, I can see that this one is through my domain is registered through Hover. Chances are otherwise, this may say Network Solutions, name.com, GoDaddy, whatever registrar was used to register it, you'll see at least that information here. Again, to help you start to try to narrow down where you need to go to recover and get access to that domain. Once you do have access to that account, maybe you need to reach out to somebody who had left the organization. Maybe you just need to add an old email account that was turned off so you can reset that password, whatever that may be. Once you have access to the domain in that registrar, you want to do a couple things. So I'm going to switch over to Hover here. This is where my domain is registered, and you can see some of that information that was available publicly when it's set to when it was registered, when it's set to renew. We can see here as well some other information. So that I have my transfer lock is on to prevent this getting transferred to another domain without me knowing. And we can see that it's set to auto renew. And this Whois privacy is toggled on. That's why my information is not public on this Whois lookup data. So a few things you want to do once you have access to the domain. One is make sure auto renew is set to on. Unless you decide you don't want this domain anymore for some reason, you want to make sure that's auto renew is on so that every year it will just renew automatically. The other thing you'll want to do is make sure that the contact information for that domain is updated and accurate. So under this registration records, you can see there's a few registration types, admin. Let me move my picture over here so I can see the owner, the admin, the billing. I'm not going to scroll down too much more because this is all my personal email, cell phone, and all that information. But this is who Hover will contact with important information regarding the domain, like it's set to expire or the credit card is expired or things like that. Stuff that you need to be aware of to keep this domain up and running. So make sure your domain is set to auto renew. Make sure you have updated registration records. Most times, or not most times, but often when I'm working with an organization, we'll log in here and realize the contact information they have on file is somebody that's no longer with the organization, and we need to make sure we've updated that to either somebody that is a third party that can monitor that, or somebody that's currently actively within the organization that can keep track of this for them. There's a few different organization types, so the owner, the admin, billing, tech, and you can set these to be different people. For example, the owner might be the CEO, but the admin might be a bookkeeper, or you're a web developer or somebody else. But make sure this is updated. Every platform is going to look a little different on how they present this and organize this, but you'll be able to see this and then edit that as necessary. So make sure it's set to auto renew. Make sure this information is updated to people who are actively aware of what's going on in the organization. And then lastly, you'll want to go into your settings of wherever your account GoDaddy is going to look a little bit different, but make sure you have updated and accurate billing information associated. So when this tries to go and renew automatically on July 29th, it's going to use that card that I have on file that's current and updated so that it doesn't fail that renewal. If it does fail, some registrars give you a little bit of a grace period, like say 7 days or 30 days to go in there and fix it, add a new card information. But it's not a situation you want to be in, especially if you're not really actively monitoring this. So make sure it's set to renew, make sure the contact information is updated, make sure you have valid billing information. Lastly, once you've squared those things away, another tool that you can use that's really helpful is domain monitoring tool. So for that, domain-monitor.io is a really great one, primarily because they have a free level. So if you only have one domain and you're just setting this up for yourself, it's free, and it's a great way as another touch point to just kind of keep track of when that domain is going to expire and is your website up and running as you expect. So if you visit this website, you can click to create a free account. I already have an account that I set up for this, so I'll just go right to my dashboard. Once you've created the account and you log in, your dashboard will look like this. And by default, I don't have any monitoring set up. And so this is where you'd want to go and add your domain to two places. You want to add it to the domains side and to the monitors side. The domain's going to keep track and tell you and alert you if your domain is at risk of expiring. Now, they don't know whether it's set to auto renew or not. They only know the expiration date. So it's just a great reminder for you to check and say, well, is it auto renew? Is a card on file? And it's just an alert that you're going to get that your domain is potentially going to expire. And the monitoring tab is going to keep track of your website and say, is this up and live on the internet? So if your site goes down for some reason and you're not aware of it, if you're not checking your website really frequently, this will alert you and say, hey, your website's gone down. You can log in and try to check and see what's going on with that. So from the dashboard, you can either click either of these green buttons or in this tab up here under monitoring, the same thing. You can click under domains and you can click under monitoring and add that up. So in this case, you'll want to create a new monitor, and I want to create, this is for the domain monitor. I want to monitor my domain here. There's a number of other settings that you can add if you're at a paid level. So I'll skip over that for now because most people use the free plan, but you can click into these and see other settings that you can check. So I'll just add that in there and click create. It's created that. So now I can see if I go back here under monitoring domains, this is my domain monitoring. And there's a bunch of other settings that you can go into here. For example, the notifications and all that sort of stuff, either through here or up here under integrations, or sorry, rather notification preferences. So once you've added these two monitoring, I'd recommend you go in there and just make sure you select when you'd want to be notified via email. You can actually, so I use Slack. I have it so that I get an email and I get a Slack notification if I have any alerts through my system. So you have domain monitoring, and then the next thing we want to do is set up monitoring for the uptime of the site. So I go again, similarly, I want to create a new monitor. I'm going to name it here. So this is the name of the monitor that you want to use. I'm just going to call it Dative. You can add a description, and then you're choosing what monitor type. In this case, we're just monitoring HTTPS, which is a URL. You can monitor some other things like a specific port, but in this case, we're monitoring a URL. There's some other settings in here and how often you want to check it, how long it should be down for before you get an alert, and then what the actual URL is. Again, there's a number of customizations you can do here if you're on a paid plan, but I'll just put in the basic one here. So hello Dative, and I'm going to create that. So that's going to add that there. And again, if I go now to domain monitors, you'll see I have my monitor. It's saying that the site is currently up. And over time, this will actually give me kind of a log of every time it has gone down and how long it went down for. And you can go in there and make some changes if you need to change to set that to a different URL and things like that. So that's it for today. Hopefully you found these tools useful and a way to make sure you're aware of where your domain's registered, how to make sure the contact information is current, and how to also set up some alerts to be alerted if it goes down or if your domain is set to expire. Thanks for watching.